One of the most common questions I get asked is, which pots actually work best for semi-hydroponics? In this video, I'll show you exactly which pots I use for my plants grown in semi-hydro, explaining clearly why I chose each pot, which plants I put in them, and the pros and cons of each specific pot. I'll also show you which pots work best for the Wick method and which ones suit the submerged method. By the end, you'll know exactly which pots work best for you and your plants, helping you achieve a healthier growth with less hassle. In this video, I'm breaking the pots down into clear, easy to follow categories, so it's not just a random list. I'll show you each pot, explain what I use it for, and talk through its strengths and limitations. I've grouped them based on how I use them. This way, you can see exactly how each one fits into a real semi-hydro setup and decide what might work best for you and your own plants. My first and the absolute workhorse of my collection are DIY net pots with a DIY cash pot. An example of this is housing my Epipremnum Manjula plant. Look at how absolutely beautiful that plant looks. It is gorgeous. It is living in my DIY net pot. Now, this is a clear pot that I buy from our local store here called Bunnings, and I just put these additional ventilation holes in there, and I use this to pot up my plants. So this particular plant is living in a mineral blend, you can see there, and it has the roots coming out of the bottom over there. And this plant actually is living in the submerged setup because you can see that nutrient solution dripping there, and I've got the nutrient solution in my cash pot over there. I love using this method because it is literally the cheapest. All I need to do is buy this pot, which costs about $1 or $2 maybe at Bunnings, and put the ventilation holes in there, and that becomes my DIY net pot. Now for my cash pot, which is this, I use a simple pot liner. This is normally a clear liner, but I line it up with just some black tape, literally black tape. I know other people have gone as far as painting them, and yeah, I just use tape, and that's just the easiest. I tape the bottom of the liner and I tape the sides. And the reason I tape it is because I'm trying to prevent light from going into and affecting the nutrient solution in there, because if that happens, then you're going to get algae growing in there. But as I say, the vast majority of my plants, probably 80% or more, are living in this kind of setup. So obviously I favor the submerged setup for plants when I'm using this system, and it works so beautifully. Look at that gorgeous, gorgeous plant. It just works so wonderfully. Now I'll show you another example of this setup. So this is a smaller pot. This is a, I want to say 10 centimeter pot, or is it 7.5? I don't know. But again, same principle. I've got some little holes in there, and I've got my plant living in Leca there. This is my Caladium pink Symphony. Just look at those magnificent leaves. They just look so, so beautiful, and my plant is there. And this, actually, this cash pot, I think, was a takeaway container, if you can believe it. And I did the same thing. I covered that with tape, and that is what worked well for me. The disadvantage with using this system is that invariably you're forced to use the submerged setup. You can turn this into a Wick setup, and it just then depends on the kind of cash pot you're using. So if you can find a cash pot where your plant is suspended at the top, that is something that you can do. And I'll show you an example of where I've done that. This over here is my Alocasia Red Secret, looking so gorgeous. So you can see that's a ceramic cash pot over there. But what I want to draw your attention to is I've got that clear pot there with the ventilation holes, and I added a wick. So this is a wick that I put in when I was potting this plant. This is a microfiber wick that I got from a microfiber mop. Very, very simple. And this cache pot allows the plant to be suspended at the top. It doesn't rest at the bottom because it's got this little space here, and that's where I put my nutrient solution. And that's how come this then becomes a wick setup. So there's a lot of space for creativity and doing things a little bit differently while you're saving money and, of course, achieving the results that you'd like to achieve, because there you go. Nothing expensive about this. All cheap products achieving that. The next category is the DIY net pot with a decorative cache pot. Now, this can be made out of any material. It can be ceramic, it can be fiberglass, anything you can find that can actually contain a liquid can be your cache pot. So the first example is one I've shown you already. That is my Alocasia Red Secret. And the ceramic pot is what is decorative. So that looks so much prettier than that black pot liner that my Manjula was living in. So that's one example. I'll show you another example. This is my Aglaonema plant, looking so magnificent in this Just Add Plants planter. Now I'll show you what is happening with inside this planter. So this is my Aglaonema plant. This is my DIY net pot, and I've got a microfiber wick dangling, and you can see the nutrient solution that is dripping over there. So this planter is quite deep, and it's the thing I really love about these Just Add planters. One, they're made out of fiberglass, but they also have a little lip. You can see this lip at the top over there. And what that lip allows is for the lip of my plastic pot to grip there, and it just sits at the top. So my pot stops somewhere here, and the rest of this actually acts as a reservoir, which is really, really good. So I then have a DIY net pot with a lovely cache pot like this one. The good thing about these pots is you can actually get even taller ones. And if you've got a taller one, that means you can have a much, much larger reservoir. That means you don't have to keep coming back again and again to fill up your reservoir much more regularly. Now, the thing I don't like about these pots is, one, it's a little bit tricky to get the plant out of there, especially if you've got a fabulous looking manicure that you don't want to get disturbed by the Leca claymores. That's one. But of course, you can fix that a little bit. You can put some tabs or something, to help you pull that out. It's fixable. It's not a deal breaker. The thing that I particularly don't like is the fact that there is no water level indicator here. That is problematic. So you either, one, have to keep very good track of your plant and know how much it's taking up that liquid to know when to refill that reservoir, or maybe you can get one of those not DIY. Well, you could actually make a DIY one. There's lots of people who actually make their own DIY water level indicators with foam and little plastic bits, and it's all very lovely. You can do that. There's lots of videos online to show you how to do that. But you can also buy water level indicators and put them in there as you're potting up, just making sure that it actually goes all the way to the bottom and can come out of the top for you to actually see. So that is one of my Aglaonemas in my Just Add Plants planters. Another example of this is this. So this is my Philodendron Ring of Fire. How beautiful, beautiful does that ring of fire look? It's just a beautiful plant. Now, I've got this living in a ceramic pot, and I love this ceramic planter because it's decorated with a bird. I'm not sure whether this one's the one that's got the kookaburra, or yes, this one's got a little kookaburra. This is a planter I got from a Bunnings actually, and it's made by the Northcote Pottery Company. I love them, love them. So these are glazed on the inside, and that's really important, especially when you're getting ceramic pots. You have to make sure they're glazed on the inside and can hold that water or liquid, because otherwise then it's just going to seep through and destroy your shelving. But I'll show you what my plant is doing. So that is my DIY net pot, and this one is living in a submerged setup, because you can actually hear that nutrient solution dripping in there and those are the roots. And you can see how beautifully my plant is doing. It's doing so well. I love this plant. I've actually got it on a fantastic clear trellis over there. No moss pole in sight. Looking absolutely fantastic. So can you have a plant on a moss pole in this kind of setup? And to that I say, yes, you can. This over here is my Monstera Thai Constellation. Oh, look at this gorgeous plant. It is so beautiful. I bought this plant for myself on my birthday. I don't know when that was, but it was a present to myself. I just love the variegation on those leaves. Looks beautiful. I've got it up on a moss pole, not necessarily that the moss pole is doing anything for leaf size, just to provide that stability and direction. And you can see how my plant is doing really well in it. Now, this plant is living in a 20 centimeter pot there. And you can see how I've got my little cable ties holding my moss pole to my pot, and look at the roots. These are Monstera roots. Now, this is a really good example actually of what happens when you've got a plant living in a submerged setup. So you can see this root over here is actually gone, but look at the rest of them. They are really healthy, and this plant is healthy, so that is not an issue. And that is living in a, I don't know how many centimeter ceramic pot that is, and that keeps the moss pole stable. It keeps my plant looking beautiful. So it is possible to actually have a plant that's living on a moss pole, living in a DIY net pot, which was a 20 centimeter clear pot, living in that ceramic pot, which provides support and as a cache pot as well. The next category is the submerged self-watering planter. A good example of this is the naked root planter. This is my golden tooth tiger philodendron plant living in a naked root planter. You've probably seen these a fair bit currently. They're very popular at the moment, and for good reason. What they have is a built-in net pot. So it's a two-pot system. The top is the net pot and the bottom bit is the cache pot. And the net pot has got these little added slits for ventilation, and you get those roots coming through there. You've got some fabulous little tiny roots that grow off of the main roots, which happens because of air root pruning. So they're really great. You've got your medium going all the way to the bottom, and that is in contact with the nutrient solution that is sitting in the cache pot. And it is just absolutely brilliant. The thing that's also brilliant about this planter is that there is no risk of overfilling your reservoir, which you run the risk of doing when you're using just my normal DIY with the normal cache pot. You can actually overfill your reservoir, but with this one you can't, because it's got that little hole over there. So once you put too much liquid, it just starts to fall out, and you'll know that you've put too much. So I really love these. A lot of people love them. They work so beautifully, and as you can see, my philodendron plant is loving it. They also have a 3-inch version. This is a white outer cache pot and a clear inner cache pot. I'm mixing and matching. I've got my Hoya Polynura living in that, and it works so beautifully. It just gets all the lovely air, and you've got my little, you can see my little roots growing on there, looking so fantastic. It's beautiful. The good thing about naked root planters is they come in so many different colors. You can just get the color that you like, and it's all fabulous. It also does come in a clear pot. Now, I'll show you something about the clear pot. So this is my Philodendron Tortum plant that's living in a naked root planter that is the clear outer pot and the clear inner pot. Now, this tends to be a bit of a controversial subject, which it really shouldn't be, because it's really quite straightforward. And as I've got my plant here, you can see what the problem is. I get a lot of people asking me about this and mentioning that this has happened. And to be honest, it's not really surprising that this happens when you're growing your plant in semi-hydroponics. This is one of the cons of using a clear outer cache pot. You will get algae growing inside your cash pot, inside your nutrient solution, because that is exposed to light. And this is a clear example of that happening. But what is beautiful is some people actually have been able to get a mix and match. And when you put an outer cash pot, you can see there's no algae there. So it literally is an issue of light hitting that pot. The pot is brilliant. It works fantastically, except for that. And what some people have done, I know some people have actually spray painted the outside of the pot and left a little gap so they can see the water level, and that seems to solve the problem. But it's just worth noting that this may happen if you're growing your plants in semi-hydroponics, so don't get surprised. So you might want to get a clear one or go into the issue with your eyes wide open. Another disadvantage of the naked root planters that a lot of people have mentioned, and for some people is a deal breaker, a lot of people it's not, is the fact that there isn't a water level indicator, which would be nice to have if you're growing your plants in semi-hydroponics. And again, it's really entirely dependent on you whether this is a deal breaker or not. What I have done in the past with some of my plants is actually put a water level indicator in that nursery pot as I'm potting up my plants, so you can then see using that whether you need to put more nutrient or not. But of course, if you're using the clear planter, it's great because it also acts as a water level indicator, because you can see where that is, the level is. So it's really a matter of weighing and deciding what it is you want to do with your naked root planter. But do I highly recommend the naked root planter? Yes, I do. They do have a bigger version of this pot as well. This right here is the 8-inch pot, the 8-inch planter of the naked root planters, and I have my rabbit's foot fern growing in that. It is absolutely loving it in there, absolutely loving it. And you can see that is that big net pot over there. I recently repotted this plant, so I did not expect to see any roots growing out of there. So this is a very, very viable pot for semi-hydroponics and works very well. And if you get the colored version, you have no algae problems whatsoever. Your only issue being the water level indicator. Another example of this pot is this one over here. This is a Veggie Garden Easy planter. I love this planter because it comes with that built-in trellis over there. I've got my Hoya incrustata moonshadow living in this. It is really, really a beautiful, beautiful planter, which works so well. Now, they do say that it acts, it wicks. So the thing about this planter is, the thing that I really, really love about it is it's a great size. It's really quite big, and it has some added ventilation on the sides. This net pot actually sits there, catches the top lip of the cash pot over there. And when I pick it up, having trouble picking it up for some reason, you can see that it's got some feet down there, and you've got your substrate sitting in those feet, and that substrate is what acts as your wick to the rest of the substrate. And the reservoir is quite big, it's quite generous in size, and it also does have a water level indicator there. So all in all, really ticking all the boxes as far as I can see. I guess the only issue you might have with this is you might run the risk of overfilling, which is a risk, of course, that you don't run into with the naked root planters. So if you put your reservoir up too high, which you can do, it might go all the way to the top and then might, expose your plant to root rot. But I love this. I love, love, love this planter. It is one of my favorites at the moment. It's a new find, and I think I'm going to get a lot of these in my collection, especially as my Hoyas keep growing bigger. Up next is the self-watering planter with the Wick category, one of my absolute favorites. And my most favorite planter in this category, of course, is the Lechuza group of planters, as some of you might know. This is my Lechuza Mini Deltini planter, and in this is my little English ivy plant looking oh so beautiful, and this one is living in my Habit mineral blend. The thing I love the most about these planters is the fact that they have this water level indicator, so you know exactly what's going on in your reservoir. Is it full or is it empty? And when I pick it up, you can see that that over there is the wick that plant has, and it just looks absolutely fantastic. I love the feel of this planter. It really does have that sheen, and it has this top upmarket feel. I can't lie. I just love the way it looks. I love the shape of it. But the thing I love as well about Lechuza is the fact that they've got planters in various sizes. So you've got the mini Deltini, which is a small one. You've got a bigger Deltini. You've got the much bigger ones that I have my bigger plants in as well. There's so many options. You've got rectangular planters. You've got a circular planters. And with some of the, well, I say circular, they're more semicircle or whatever shape you want to call them. I've got my watermelon peperomia living in one of those. It's just that they also have the rectangular ones, like I said, and in my rectangular ones, I used to grow some of my moss walls. So much diversity in the level of pots that they offer. And they offer some fantastic accessories that go with those pots as well. One of the accessories I really like is the little slidey thingy. So you can put your pot on top of the dolly. It's like a little dolly. It's like a little trolley that makes it easy for you to move your bigger plants around. So all in all, I have nothing bad to say about Lechuza. They are one of my absolute favorite. I will mention though that Lechuza pots they are a bit pricier than other pots, you know, and I don't know if I want to say you get what you pay for, or I don't know. I'm not over what their pricing structure is and how they price things the way they do, but that's what it is. Some people complain that their pots are a little bit pricey, and yes, they are compared to others, and I tend to purchase them during the sale season. So when there's a sale going on is when I know that I can get some Lechuza pots, and that works really well for me. So yeah, if you love self-watering planters that do have that water level indicator, Lechuza will do it for you. The one thing I don't like about Lechuza though is if you look at this planter, you can see that there's no holes in the pot. That's one aspect of this planter that I do not like for my semi-hydro pots, because I like my roots to have a lot more ventilation. So in the past, I have been known to make holes in my Lechuza planters, which obviously then voids the warranty, but it works for me. I do that. So I don't know whether Lechuza would think about putting a little bit more ventilation in their pots or not. But even if they don't, I still love the Lechuza planter. That one works really well for me. Now there's another pot that I absolutely love that is a little bit like the Lechuza planter without the water level indicator, and it is this one. This is housing my Hoya Suzy Q, and doesn't she look absolutely beautiful? And this is the planter here, and of course you know I do love a white planter, right? This is the Leafy brand Ultimate Pot. Now it used to be called Ultimate Pot Set, I think, but it now just says pot. I don't know. Anyway, that's it. And this is a 2-part pot as well. I'll raise my table so you can see that a little bit better. And you've got the inner pot there, and you've got the cash pot over there. I love the fact that the cash pot is opaque, so you don't have any algae growing in there. And you can see the roots of my gorgeous, beautiful Hoya there. Just loving life. You can use this pot with a wick or without a wick, I think, depending on how high you want to put up your reservoir. I like to have the wick in there so you can see the wick there, and that is dripping the nutrient solution on there. It does have some ventilation holes in the sides. They're very small. I mean, the issue of ventilation holes, some people think they're needed, some people think they don't. So this one does have something, it's there, but I like to have more. So I put additional ventilation holes in this particular pot, and that I think my Hoya likes it, but you know, I don't do it for all of them. I'll show you another one that I have here. So this one is actually a bigger one. See this, I think this is the smallest size. This is the bigger one here. And then I've got another one, I think. that a Monstera type constellation is living in. I don't know. I'm confused about sizes, but I love that there's multiple sizes, right? And this is my money tree living in my Leafy brand ultimate pot. And you can see that for this one, I actually didn't make any ventilation holes. And that's the little wick over there. And my plant is doing okay. My plant actually loves it in there. So it is really very, very optional. I love it here. I'll also show you my Thai constellation that is living in one of these ultimate pot sets. There you go. Looking absolutely beautiful. Now, trying to pull that out. I mean, yes, it is a bit difficult sometimes if you're a bit weak, but there we go. Look at that. Look at that Monstera type constellation. The roots on that are insane. Absolutely insane. I think I used to have a wick in here when I first put it in this pot, but clearly I don't even need a wick anymore. I don't even know if you can call this a wick method at this point. But that is my Monstera living in my Leafy ultimate pot set. Now, I do know that Leafy brand has got other colors of these pots. So it's just because I like to use white, but hang on 2 secs. I'll show you something because I recently got a black one, right? And this black one is so much bigger than the white one. So you can get a white one in this size as well, which is brilliant, absolutely fantastic for your much, much larger plants. And that's the inner pot over there. And I know that the Leafy brand has these in an avocado color. I've got it shown here, and doesn't that just look amazing? It looks really, really good. And if you're into pastel colors, your home would just look absolutely fabulous. Can you imagine? You've got the white, you've got the avocado, looks brilliant. Unfortunately, as of filming, which is mid-2025, the Leafy brand are not shipping these pots outside of Australia. So this really is only available for people who live in Australia because the shipping is just insane to shop it elsewhere. So maybe later on they will start to do it. But yeah, this is an Australia only thing. I love it. I love these. They feel very, very sturdy. They look amazing. You would not go wrong if you got yourself one of these. So sticking with the self-watering category, I have this pot over here. This pot is housing my Alocasia poly. This plant is doing so well, and I think it really, really loves its pot. This is a Dexceder pot. There we go. That's what it says. It says Dexceder somewhere down there. And I love this pot. It's got a water level indicator, and it's got these little handles in the sides to make it easy to pick up the pot, which is amazing. Now, for this particular plant, I've got my wick there, my microfiber wick there, and I actually did make additional ventilation holes for this Alocasia. And you can see this tiny little Alocasia plant that has just sprouted, and it's just looking amazing. Another reason I love this planter is I bought this one off Amazon, and it is nowhere as expensive as a Lechuza planter. So if you're looking for something that's like a Lechuza planter without the Lechuza price tag, this is a very good option. Only problem is I haven't been able to find any other sizes. And the last time I checked, at least on my Amazon Australia anyway, it was out of stock and pending restock. So I hope that they're back in stock because they are a fantastic option. And I think I have 2 of these planters. They work really, really well. They're a good option. The next one I want to show you is my T4U self-watering planters. Again, these are planters I got off Amazon. Now, these are my least favorite out of my self-watering planter. They're a good workhorse in my collection, but they're my least favorite. They look good. They, fit the business. I've got my Hoya Bella living in there, and it looks so beautiful when it's actually in flower in this planter. And it's got the outer cache pot here, and you've got the black inner cache pot. So obviously it's not clear, and it's got these little slits there, which are the ventilation, which for me will do, and that works okay. And that is the Wick over there. Now, I hope you're able to see and immediately start to pick out what are some of my issues with this pot. You can see you've got the Wick there, has got a little bit of green on there. And in there, you can actually see that there's algae that is starting to grow in my reservoir. And when I touch it, you can see how easy it is to sort of, just change the shape of that. It's a very, very soft pot. And the reason that's annoying is when you're trying to put your inner pot in, it just keeps moving everywhere. And it's just a little bit annoying to get it in that right spot. It's not impossible. Like I said, it's just annoying. But it's in there. It works well as a self-watering planter. But of course, because it's a little bit flimsy, the outer pot, the light does get through and you do have algae growing in that reservoir. It's not necessarily a deal breaker. I use it quite a fair bit, and it's got different sizes as well. So you can see this is a bigger one and this is a smaller one over there. And this is my Alocasia dragon scale that is living in that pot and is relatively happy, I would imagine, because you can see what is happening with the root system of my Alocasia over there. It's looking amazing. My plant is looking amazing. So, I can't really complain. If I'm looking for a cheaper option for self-watering planters, and I get these in sets of 6, I think, it works really well. This is another one here. This is my Brazilian Edelweiss plant, which is a Codex plant, which I need to be in a Wick setup. And there we go. Same situation over here. Flimsy, a little bit of algae, but my plant is alive. My plant is happy. I can't really complain. The last category is my specialty pots. This here is my LetPot planter, what I like to call my specialty pot. This is a planter that I use when I'm doing some experiments and I'm trying to control the conditions and make sure that 2 plants are receiving the same nutrients, having the same conditions, so I can test whatever it is that I'm testing and remove the confounding factors or the effect that different nutrient solutions would have on the plant. That is it over there. It's got 2 pots there. It's made by a company called LetPot, and I love these pots because they are very deep. When you pick them up like that, that is the reservoir there, and it's a very, very, very deep reservoir, so you can have a lot of nutrient solution in there. But before I talk about the pots, let me dive deeper into this reservoir. You can actually connect other LetPot units, so you can have a unit of 4 or of 6 or of 8 all in a row, which is useful if you're doing, if you're growing plants like strawberries or stuff like that. That's handy. But I've only got the two pot set up, and that works well for me. What I've also done with this reservoir is I've made this hole over here, and what this hole allows me to do is thread through my air pipe, and I'll have an air stone sitting at the bottom over there, aerating that nutrient solution, making sure that the conditions for my plant are as optimal as I can get them. So I love that about this planter. And as you can see, that pot is very, very tall, and it is tapered at the bottom, which is beautiful. And this little cup over here is what sits in that reservoir, and it's got little slits there as well. I mean, I could put additional ventilation holes there, but I don't see any need for it. I think what's there is sufficient. And I've used this one to do experiments on my Alocasias. There was an experiment I did on Alocasias where on one plant, I took the roots off completely, and on another plant, I kept the roots on, and that worked really well. It was quite surprising, the results on that. So this kind of planter works good in that kind of setting, and it's handy to have if you're trying to do a few things like that. But if you're growing lots and lots of plants and you want to have one reservoir, this is a handy planter to have as well. If you're just getting started with semi-hydro, my go-to recommendation is a simple nursery pot inside a cache pot. It's affordable, easy to find, and gives you flexibility to experiment with different plants and setups. For low maintenance care, I prefer pots with built-in reservoirs like the Lechuza or Ultimate Pot Set or the Naked Root Planter. They keep the moisture consistent and cut down on how often you need to top up your nutrient solution. And if you're after something more decorative, I love using ceramic or fiberglass cache pots with clean lines. They let the plant shine while keeping the setup functional. So let me know in the comments, what's your go-to pot for semi-hydro? I'd love to hear what's working for you, especially if you found something unique or underrated. I'm always looking for new ideas.